Evidence shows Justin Ross Harris knew his 22-month-old son was in his sweltering SUV, sources tell CNN affiliate WSB. After breakfast, Harris was seen strapping his 22-month-old son Cooper into his car seat. He drove less than a mile away to this Home Depot store support center, where he works as a web designer. Normally, Harris takes Cooper to a daycare on site, but not on this day. Instead, Harris headed inside the office and left his toddler in the rear-facing car seat in the back in the blazing Georgia sun. Investigators say Harris returned to the SUV at lunchtime, opened the driver's side door, and placed something inside. He then closed the door and walked off. The temperature outside hit 88 degrees that afternoon. The temperature inside the SUV potentially exceeded 130 degrees, and Cooper was likely already dead. The arrest warrant says at 4:16 that afternoon, at the end of the workday, Harris returned to the SUV and started the drive home. 7 minutes later, and about 2 miles down the road, Harris screeched into this parking lot.
Hopped out of the driver's seat, opened the back door, pulled his child out, laid him on the concrete, tried to resuscitate him.
But little Cooper was dead.
Obviously, it was a bit dramatic, hands in the air, looking up towards the sky. What have I done?
But police say it was all an act, charging him with cruelty to a child and felony murder.
He'll be entering a plea of not guilty at this time.
Justin Ross Harris's trial is scheduled to start in April, but there has been a big development in the case with the judge dealing a major blow to the defense. They wanted to exclude some of the evidence collected by the police, including sexually explicit text messages exchanged with other women at the very moment his son was dying in a hot car. The judge denied those motions. CNN legal analyst Philip Holloway is with me now. Philip, you have been in that courtroom for several of Harris's hearings. What are we looking at here with the latest developments?
Yasmin, what this is the culmination of some very good lawyering by both sides. The defense filed various motions alleging constitutional violations by the police in seizing evidence and collecting evidence, essentially violations of his Fourth Amendment rights. And what the judge did is she asked both sides to submit competing proposed orders. And at the end of the day, the judge elected to rule with the prosecution in what can only be described as a really big victory for them. That simply means that the judge has said that the Constitution was not violated. The defense still has the opportunity, Yasmin, to ask the judge to exclude certain items of evidence if, for example, it might violate Georgia's rules of evidence, whether it's hearsay or it's something that's evidentiary value is outweighed by the danger for unfair prejudice and things like that.
But what exact evidence is now allowed into this case that the defense didn't want anybody to see?
Well, we don't know yet because the prosecution hasn't said what evidence they plan to introduce at the trial, and the defense still has the opportunity to ask the judge to keep it out on some other legal grounds, but at least it's not going to be kept out under the constitutional grounds that the defense raised in the pretrial motion hearings.
We've talked about Justin Ross Harris's sexting with other women, right? I want to bring up a picture of Justin Ross Harris and little Cooper, again, just to remind everybody of this father and son. Do we have that picture, everybody? Do we have that picture, guys? Can we bring that picture up? People have described scratches on this 2-year-old boy's face. An incredibly tragic way for a little toddler to die. Like you said, a huge victory, it seems, for the prosecution. Is that the tactic that they take in this case, that emotional tactic?
I think anytime you have a trial involving the death of a child, there's going to be an element of emotion, and it's going to be how the prosecution and the defense handle that emotional element with the jury. Clearly, it's a tragedy. We know that anytime a child dies in a hot car, whether it be by accident, Yasmin, or as the prosecution has alleged, on purpose, it's simply heartbreaking. And,
right.
you're going to have to ask the jury, if you're the defense, to be able to separate that heartbreak from doing your job and looking at the evidence in a dispassionate way.
But if you're the jury and you're seeing these possible sex messages that they may be allowed now into this courtroom.
That's correct.
And you know that this little boy died while this father was sexting, I mean...
That was a big part of what the defense was arguing in the motions. We've had several rounds now. They asked the judge to sever those counts and make them a part of a second trial just to avoid that issue. And the judge said no. The judge ruled with the prosecution, said no, that goes to his potential motive. It also would show potentially why he may have been distracted, because there is still one of the charges in this indictment that deals with criminal negligence and whether or not he was distracted at work while he was engaging in this activity, allegedly.
Well, this trial is set to begin in just a couple of months. We are certainly going to keep an eye on it. Phil Holloway is also going to be keeping an eye on it. Thank you for joining us, Philip.